and all the devotees. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnana Timilandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadhati Shapadantikam Bandehang Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakamanam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Shagrasatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Stamasari Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Vetam Vadevam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Deen Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Pancha Kolpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Pyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you again. I see Vegavati Mataji is here. Obeisances. We've just finished Akama Sarvakamo Va Moksha Kama Udarati Tivrena Bhakti Yogena Yajeta Purusham Param. The Shukadev Goswami had described, for this desire you worship this demigod, for that desire worship that demigod. And whether you're full of desires or free from desires or desiring liberation, if you're intelligent, udarati, broad-minded, then the thing to do is to worship the personality of Godhead, Tivrena, with great force, with great concentration. So now we're moving on. Jnanam, let's see. Jnanam yad aprati nibvrita gunormi chakram atma prasada utayatra guneshva sangha kaivalya sammata patas pratabhakti yoga ko nirvrito harikatasu pratimna kuryat. Transcendental knowledge in relation with the Supreme Lord Hari is knowledge resulting in the complete suspension of the waves and whirlpools of the material modes. Such knowledge is self-satisfying. Due to its being free from material attachment and being transcendental, it is approved by authorities. Who could fail to be attracted? Jnanam yad a pratinirvrita gunormi chakram. This knowledge in relationship to the personality of Godhead leads to pratinivrita guna urmi chakram, suspension or freedom from the guna urmi, the waves of the material modes of nature, the chakra, the whirlpool of the waves of material nature.
Maharaj, pardon me, did we skip 11 or?
Oh, I am sorry.
It looks like we skipped, yeah.
Thank you. My goodness. That's what happens. Yes. Etavan eva yajatam iha nishreyasodaya bhagavatya chalo bhavo yad bhagavata sangataha. Continuing on properly from the previous verse, there's so many worshippers of multi-demigods, etavan eva yajatam. There's so many worshippers of different kinds. Iha nishreyasodaya. But they can achieve the nishreyasa karabhuvo. They can attain the highest benediction, highest perfection. And what is that? Bhagavat Yachalo Bhava. The bhava, spontaneous attraction, bhava. Achala, unflinching, unwavering. Attraction, Bhagavati, for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And how can they achieve it? Yad Bhagavata Sangataha. Only by the association of the pure devotees. The Srila Prabhupada discusses the plight of the conditioned souls who are thrown into this material world because of their material desires. And he says significantly, all plans for material enjoyment, either by worship of different demigods, as described in the previous verses, or by modernized advancement of scientific knowledge without the help of God or demigod, are illusory only, for despite all such plans for happiness, the conditioned living being within the compass of material creation can never solve the problems of life, namely birth, death, old age, and disease. I find it significant there that Srila Prabhupada recognizes these two different ways of trying to surpass the material energy or win over the material energy. And one is the path of worshiping God or demigods. Please give me this, please give me that. I want this, I want that. And the other is just to make a beeline for them through direct exploitive efforts, which in our modern world means especially scientific endeavors or technological, really, scientific, technological endeavors to exploit the material energy for happiness. I mean, why else are we doing this? But one doesn't get happiness. That's the point. Whether you do it by demigod worship or you do it by direct manipulation of matter, you're trying to satisfy this desire, that desire, this desire, that desire, and the desires will never be fulfilled. The history of the universe is full of such plan makers, and many kings and emperors come and go, leaving a plan-making story only. But the prime problems of life remain unsolved. So this is the situation. And Prabhupada discusses it further. They're creating a great commotion about reaching the Chandraloka, the moon. But even after much mechanical research, they have only scanty information of the moon. And in spite of false advertisement for selling land on the moon, the puffed up scientists or gross materialists cannot live there, what to speak of reaching other planets, which they're unable even to count. I don't recall very much about selling land on the moon, but I know that having grown up in the days of the Kennedy administration, where the race for space was prime time. Now it's other things, but then it was the race for space and landing a man on the moon and all of that. And there was so much talk about all the benefits that we would gain by doing that. We would have so much opportunity for scientific research. We would, who knows what we would discover. And fizzle, fizzle, fizzle. Nothing. Big expenditure. And what? And even if we were to go there, what would we do? We've already made a mess of this planet, so now we'd look for another planet to make a mess of. It doesn't solve the problems of life. The followers of the Vedas have a different method of acquiring knowledge. They accept the statements of the Vedic literature as authority in toto. Unless the gross materialists or the worshippers of the temporary demigods come in contact with the transcendentalist, like a pure devotee of the Lord, their attempts are simply a waste of energy. Only by the grace of the divine personalities, the pure devotees of the Lord, can one achieve pure devotion, which is the highest perfection of human life. Only a pure devotee of the Lord can show one the right way of progressive life. Otherwise, both the materialistic way of life without any information of God or the demigods, and the life engaged in the worship of demigods in pursuit of temporary material enjoyments are different phases of phantasmagoria. All right, any questions so far or comments so far? Okay.
Is there something in the chat box?
Oh, there is. In 2.3.11, Srila Prabhupada condemns false selling of land on the moon. What is the harm of selling land on the moon? Are we not parts and parcels of the supreme adventurer, Lord Krishna himself? Are we not meant to give new worlds to our world? Huh. Well, first of all, Prabhupada said it's a false advertisement. You could sell land on the moon, but the delivery may be somewhat delayed. Prabhupada wrote this, back in the 1960s, and residence on the moon is still in the to come column. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, yeah, you sell land on the moon or Venus or wherever you go, but you give new worlds to our world and they'll make a mess of the new world. That's what we're living in the new world, right? America. So what's happened in the new world? They've made a mess of what used to be pretty nice land. If you look at New York City back in the days of Columbus, it was a beautiful place. The Hudson River must have been, pristine. There were forests, there were deer, there was birds and chirping and blue skies, and now they've made it hell. So that's what happened when the old world went to the new world. So if we go to the moon, we'll do the same nonsense. We'll try to exploit the resources of the material nature for sense gratification and have no success. We'll spoil our human form of life and spoil wherever we go at the same time. The supreme adventurer, Krishna himself, he can go everywhere, and wherever he goes, the place becomes blessed. Wherever he goes, that place becomes sanctified, that place becomes wonderful. Wherever we go, we pollute the place. So these are some of the problems with whatever we do. Prabhupada quoted a common saying that if you take a mortar and pestle or take a grinding machine to the moon, it will do the same thing. It'll grind. It won't do something different. So here we can struggle against material nature and not solve or be subject to the problems of birth, death, disease, and old age. And you can go to the moon and do the same thing. What's the advantage? Yeah, the moon is old news. Now we have our sights on Mars. I've written about that. Some articles I have online about that. The moon is old news. But what happened to the moon? I mean, just from an investment point of view, we've invested so much in the moon, and now we're going to Mars. Elon Musk has detailed his plot to build a glorious city on Mars, but says early visitors will probably die. I have news for him: the later visitors will also die. The stargazing billionaire has reaffirmed his vision for a Martian colony that doesn't rely on support from Earth. Yeah, I mean, what will you do? Have sex on Mars. So sex is sex, eating is eating, sleeping is sleeping. What's the difference whether you sleep on Mars or you sleep here? It's the same animal propensity. So if we provide facility for the human animals to go to Mars, what will they do? They'll be the same animals. There's in Spanish, el mono, aunque vestido de seda, mono se queda. The meaning is the monkey, even though dressed in silk, is still a monkey. All right.
Maharaj.
Yes.
Maharaj, what about if people come to you in terms of reacting to the answer you just gave us and say, oh, why are you being so negative? Okay, you do not want us to make a mess on the moon or on Mars. Give us the Vedic way of exploring outer space. We promise that we won't be there.
We're happy to give you the Vedic way to outer space.
What is that?
We have a book, Easy Journey to Other Planets. You read it and find out how to go. What to speak of outer space, we can take you beyond outer space. If you go to outer space, you're still subject to birth and death. But Mahamupecha Tukontia Punarjanma Vidyate. If you come with us to our destination, you'll never have to come back. You'll never have to suffer on in this dukkhalaya, in this temporary, miserable world. You can live permanently. What's the use of living on Mars and then coming back and taking birth again in a slum somewhere on Earth? It doesn't solve your problem.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you.
Radheya says we could spread COVID to Mars. Yeah. Bring our wet markets to the moon, to Mars. Kill animals on other planets. Mono cicada. Anything else? Okay. Now we go to 12. We're now entitled to move on. Jnanam yada pratinibritta gunorami chakram atma prasada uta yatra gunesh vasangaha kaivalya sammatapatas tvata bhakti yoga ko nirvito harikatasu ritim nakuriyat. The transcendental knowledge, jnanam, yadjnanam, knowledge in relation to the Supreme Lord, frees one from the whirlpool of the material energy Atma prasada utayatra guneshva sangha. And one becomes, when one is freed from attachments and the modes of nature, one becomes Atma prasada, self-satisfied, transcendentally self-satisfied. Kaivalya sammatapatas. This path is approved by the pure devotees. What is that path? Bhakti yoga. Go nirvito harikatasu ratim na kuryat. And therefore, who is it that could fail to be attracted? The purport is quite interesting here. According to Bhagavad Gita 10.9, the characteristics of pure devotees are wonderful. The complete functional activities of a pure devotee, all that they do, are always engaged in the service of the Lord, and thus pure devotees exchange feelings of ecstasy between themselves and relish transcendental bliss. Vajchita madgata prana bodhiyanta parasparam katiyantaschamam nityam tushanti charimanti cha. The devotees enjoy transcendental bliss by enlightening one another about Krishna. This transcendental bliss is experienced even in the stage of devotional practice, sadhana avastha, if properly undertaken under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. And in the mature stage, the developed transcendental feeling culminates in realization of the particular relationship with the Lord by which a living entity is originally constituted, up to the relationship of conjugal love with the Lord, which is estimated to be the highest transcendental bliss. So Srila Prabhupada quite wonderfully delineates two kinds of bhakti yoga, or two stages of bhakti yoga, really. The practice stage, in which one enjoys transcendental bliss. Even the practice is so nice that in the practice stage, one enjoys transcendental ecstasy, transcendental bliss. And in the mature stage, the developed transcendental feeling culminates in realization of the particular relationship with the Lord. So this is the goal, the developed stage, the mature stage of devotional service. And this is all on the Kaivalya Pantha, the path of pure devotional service, which is the only means to attain the Godhead. It begins from Shravana, hearing topics that relate to the personality of Godhead, and by hearing, the natural consequence is attainment of transcendental knowledge, which causes detachment from all mundane topics for which a devotee has no taste at all. For a devotee, all mundane activities, social and political, become unattractive. And in the mature state, such a devotee becomes uninterested even in his own body, what to speak of bodily relatives. In such a state of affairs, one is not agitated by the waves of the material modes. So this is of interest. The mundane topics become useless for a devotee. What's in it? The materialists chew it and chew it and chew it and chew it. The latest news, the breaking news, the news, and they chew it. This candidate this candidate that, this one said this one said that. And it's all useless. It simply keeps the mind busy in topics that have no value. But the devotees cultivate their attraction to the Krishna Katha, and the Krishna Katha, Hari Katha, results in, what do I want to hear that stuff for? It becomes distasteful. Why do I want to hear about this candidate, that candidate, this disaster, that disaster, this political controversy, that political controversy, this and that, and this and that. Don't get out of my life. I don't want to hear this stuff. Tell me about Krishna. And the devotees cultivate that taste. They meet together and they don't talk about the same mundane topics. They talk about Krishna. And that's also part of practice. If we don't do that, then we should make it our business to do that, to talk about Krishna, to hear about Krishna, to absorb ourselves in Krishna Katha. That's the goal. So that we forget about all this useless stuff, which is just of no consequence. It's just the interactions of the modes of nature. And, again and again and again, this one, that one, this one, that one, this news, that news. But if we become attracted to this news of Krishna, the more we become attracted, the more we're making progress on that Kaivalya Pantha, the path of pure devotional service, so that we become uninterested in mundane topics. Even we become uninterested in the ordinary bodily preoccupations of home and family and the senses and all of that. One becomes free from this whirlpool of mundane business. And does that mean then, and the result is one becomes Atma Prasad, completely self-satisfied. And still, one can engage with the material energy, but just for the sake of serving Krishna. Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe, Yukta Vairagya Muchyate. Okay, we have a couple of questions here. Tulsi Priya has a question. Yes, Tulsi Priya.
Hi, Krishna Maharaj, thank you. My question is, it's kind of an observation that I would like you to weigh in a little bit. A lot of us, I think, when we first came to Krishna consciousness, especially if we moved into the ashram, you would go cold turkey on so many things, of course, directly the, gross sinful activities, that's all finished with, but we would stop watching television, we would stop watching movies, maybe not reading magazines, things like that. And then at least I think with a lot of us, little by little things would creep back in. Let's say if we moved out of the ashram and have our own places, and you start watching a movie here and there, and then for some of us it becomes a habit. And I noticed with myself, I resisted some things for a long time, which is not to say I don't still have a lot of attachments materially that I need to get rid of. Let's use, for example, movies. Went from not watching them at all to watching them occasionally, very occasionally, and then maybe getting a little more habitual, and then gradually became less habitual. And this is all coinciding with trying to engage more to the point where, sometimes I think, oh, I just want to, relax. I don't want to think about anything. I'll watch a movie. And I try to think what kind of movie I want to see. And for the life of me, I can't figure out what I want to see. So I wind up not watching a movie. And so my question is that, is there benefit in being more, I don't want to say relaxed, but trying to be regulated and not having a habit of watching a movie or doing something that isn't directly Harikatha? as opposed to being, I shall not do it, I won't do it. And then sometimes you see people eventually, no, they give it up after a while. They give up their renunciation of these things, and then they go back to it again. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it at all beneficial to at least maybe taper off or wean oneself off to the point where you lose the taste for it? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Should we just renounce it or regulate it? If you turn off your sound, somehow we're echoing.
Yeah.
Of course, regulated is better than pigging out, but better just to give it up. But the real thing is to be engaged positively. When we're busy, we join the ashram and we forget, we leave aside movies and whatnot because we're busy. We're out there chanting, we're out there distributing books, we're doing something for the spiritual master. We're busy. So we just don't have time for movies and whatnot, nor, what do I want to do that for? I'm having a good time here. But it's idleness. It's idleness that fosters this movie business and so many time wasters. Time sucks. There was a little sign at 26 2nd Avenue. It was embroidered, in fact, on a little sign, I believe, by Balai Dasi's mother. It said, if you don't have basically engagement or service, then chant or read scripture. If you're always engaged in Krishna consciousness, then you won't fall into Maya. Well, that's quite it, isn't it? To be always busy in Krishna's service so that we don't have idle minds and dull minds and so on. That's the thing. And yes, better to be determined. Let me give it up and even if I fail, even if I work hard to give these things up, and then I find myself, falling into reading fiction, watching movies, talking prajalpa. All right, let me again come back to it. Come back to the standard. Rather than say, well, I'll just make it a part of my life, but a small part of my life. Why? If it's useless, then let it be useless. Why entertain it? Now, we all have our diversions, our distractions, but we should try to very seriously engage ourselves in such a way that we can escape these things and not be victimized really by the Gunormi chakra, the whirlpool of material energy. The internet's made it harder because everyone can conveniently waste time with so many interesting distractions, with people who are paid good money to figure out how to grab you by the mind and drag you away. But we should work hard at it. It's worth it. Follow-up question from Tulsi Priya.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Maybe this is the answer to maybe too long for this particular gathering, and I'm just thinking about early experiences, and I think it's something that if it's been addressed, I've forgotten it, or maybe it's been addressed and I missed it. But I feel like a lot of times in the early days of our spiritual life, we're trying so hard and not always succeeding. And there's a sense of burnout sometimes.
Tulsi Priya, could you
And
turn off your video?
we just want to
Tulsi
not
Priya.
have to deal with
Hey, Tulsi Priya.
failures of our own.
You're breaking
Krishna?
up. You're breaking up. Could you turn off your video, please?
Okay, okay, turn off the video.
Yes.
How about now?
Better.
Okay, so, you know, there's a kind of stress of trying to be a devotee when you're new. And at some points you just want to say, I just need a break. I just need to get away from it. And I'm just wondering, you know, what are some constructive, or, you know, we have difficulties with authorities, or we have difficulties with other devotees, and sometimes we just want to space out, you know? And
We don't have to
I'm
do,
just thinking,
we don't have to do that. We have our own relaxation. You know, you can go on a devotee retreat. You can chant Hare Krishna.
yeah.
You can have some devotional project of your own. There's so many things you can do. It's not that we really need it. You know, I need some Maya now. That'll make me feel better. No, Maya will not make me feel better. But you know, variety in devotional service, right? We can't, if it's, you know, like unmitigated marathon running, then we may find that difficult. All right, then you, like Prabhupada said, you chant and dance. When you get tired, then take some prasadam. So in that way, different, and this is our culture, and we need to cultivate these things in the association of devotees to help one another, to enlighten one another, to exchange with one another on this platform. Not that we get together and we sort of shoot the breeze and hang out and maybe talk about the election or COVID-19 and this and that and sort of waste our time, but make it an active project, how we can engage ourselves and one another in Krishna Katha or some Krishna service. And then we become happy. All right, that I need a break from going out. I'll make garlands, I'll sew for the deities, I'll do this, I'll do that. But some happy plan for devotional service, that will be so much better. I saw it for one time. I was in Vrindavan, and there were, while I was there, it was Kartik, there were a whole bunch of young ISKCON devotees who'd come, and they were just kind of hanging out. And they were, that's what they're doing. They're kind of hanging out. And they looked like they were, you know, just kind of hanging out. And Ritadvija Maharaj was there, and he organized some program. I forget what it was, a parikrama or this or that, and, you know, just pulled them all in, and they were in bliss. They were all in ecstasy because now they had positive engagement. They weren't really happy just hanging out in Vrindavan, waiting for something to happen, sort of wondering what's what. As soon as there was something positive that was enlivening, they were all blissful. They're naturally devotees. They came to Vrindavan after all. So as soon as there was engagement for them, they felt happiness. I was in another time, I was at a festival in Los Angeles. Maybe it was Rath Yatra. I think it was Rath Yatra. And sort of as a warm up to Rath Yatra, they had like a gathering of post-Guru Kuli devotees in a nearby park. And they were all kind of like, you know, frisbeeing and this and that, and, you know, sort of just like, you know, be here now, wasting their time. And our Achyuta Priya was, Achyuta Gopi was there. And she started a kirtan. And she just sat down and started chanting Hare Krishna. And pretty soon, you know, there was like a whole crowd of devotees who were in ecstasy, chanting Hare Krishna with the Chuta Gopi. Then that's all it took was just, how hard is that to sit down in the grass and chant Hare Krishna? Just means that, why should I throw frisbees or cruise around? Let me sit down and chant Hare Krishna. That's what my life is for. So as soon as there's positive engagement, then automatically the negative engagements, the useless engagements fall away. So our business, the purpose of the association of devotees is to help one another in these transcendental activities, to enliven one another in these transcendental activities, to make plans for devotional service. Even, just the planning is ecstatic, and then the execution. Always to be doing something, not to be idle and mopey or unengaged. All right, there are some other questions here.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. People are not attracted to transcendence, Vijay Krishna says, because they cannot see it or touch it. Who could be there blaming them for saying no to the invisible, untouchable God? They can't see it. They can't touch it. They're busy after so many things. They're after a happiness that's untouchable. They can't really get it, but they're trying again and again. Why do I have to see? Hearing, you can hear. You can't touch knowledge, you can't see knowledge. So does it mean we should remain ignorant and not cultivate knowledge? I only deal with what I can see. Knowledge is invisible, but it's more valuable than your gold coins. Dipti. Following Bhakti Yoga, we are able to engage the senses. However, how can you purify desires themselves, as desires are carried from your prior subtle bodies? Krishna, as Supersoul, is there to ultimately fulfill your desires. As some people, for example, Elon Musk, have attraction for exploring space or certain specific occupation, do these desires arise in intelligence or the mind? The desires are there in the soul. Soul has a propensity to desire, but by contact with the material energy, our desires are misdirected. Just like so everyone wants to be happy, everyone wants to enjoy, but if we fall in with bad association, then we think, let me enjoy by taking drugs, let me enjoy by stabbing people, whatever your low pursuit is, let me enjoy by getting drunk, by bad association. So when we associate with the material nature, especially the lower modes of material nature, then these desires become contaminated. Our pure desire becomes contaminated. And all right, we've already got that disease from our previous births, but our desire can change. Carried from your prior subtle body. Prior subtle body just means the mind. So the mind has so much rubbish in it. Therefore, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, the mind has to be cleansed. Cleansed means changing our desires. I'm desiring Maya, but let me desire Krishna. How is that possible? Bhagavata Sangata, by the devotee association. If we associate with devotees who are absorbed in Krishna Katha or Krishna activities, then we can be, inspired. We also become inspired. Let me do this. by contact with Srila Prabhupada, we changed. We thought, why should I do this other thing? Let me do this. Why should I'm not becoming happy. I'm not able to fulfill even if I go to space, into outer space, I did it. What? So then I come back. I went into outer space. It doesn't solve the problems. In the book of Ecclesiastes, which I've written that commentary, this point is made in the beginning, where the king presents himself as, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. I had gardens, I built houses, I had women, I had any kind of sense gratification. And at the end I said, what's the use? What's the use? It's all empty. So that's what it is. And they know it. They know it. The rich men, the big names, all of these people, it's not that they're in bliss because they've got money, because they've got sense gratification. They're tripyanti neha kripana. They're never satisfied. Bahudukha bhajam. They're always suffering from so many miseries. The rich and the famous, it's not that they're more satisfied. Atma prasada. They're not. They don't have that, and that's where happiness comes from Atma prasad, from being self-satisfied. Prasade sarvadukhanam hanirasyo pajayate. Prasanna chetaso yashu budhir paryavatishtate. When the mind is satisfied, then the intelligence becomes properly engaged. So does the space business come from, does desires arise in intelligence or the mind? The desires arise in the, what would you say, in the heart, in chitta, in our consciousness, but distracted or misdirected. The mind grabs, that's described in the Bhagavad Gita, that the senses grab the mind, then the mind engages the intelligence. The intelligence becomes engaged in sense gratification. Prabhupada gave the example that there's a cat in your house, and he sees that there's a cup of, he sees some milk on the table, but he doesn't just jump up and go for the milk. He waits till you've left the kitchen, then jumps up and gets the milk. So that's intelligence. But what is that intelligence? Intelligence directed toward eating, sleeping, mating, defending. So so the intelligence becomes engaged, but engaged, it's engaged in the lower business, in the animal business. How to eat, how to sleep, how to have security. That's the big thing in space, exploring space. I mean, why are we really exploring space? There'd be no funding if it didn't have a military dimension to it. So all this money for defending. All this money for defending, which is the business of the animals. So what is it? Star Wars. We'll go to space and fight. We're fighting already down here. So then if we become more advanced, we can fight in space. It's the same animal business. So this is intelligence and the mind being dragged down. But if the intelligence and mind are turned toward the devotional service of Krishna, then everything becomes purified. Gurudas says, Srila Prabhupada rightly discouraged the neophyte devotee's abundance of curiosity regarding his Siddha Swarup and other similar kinds of what we might call spiritual speculation. But devotees who are so much in the habit of speculation will continue doing so on various topics, especially if untrained or unwilling to surrender to submissive hearing. The neophyte's attraction for Krishna is often snuffed out after only a brief flicker. So it seems like a person's best or only alternative is to go from service to service, seeking to become absorbed, to get away from the speculative habit. Would you be so kind as to comment on this line of thought? Well, yes, from service to service. Doesn't mean I have to go from New York to Chicago, from Chicago to Istanbul, but always be engaged in service. When one service is done, take up the next service. Always be engaged in service. If you're always engaged in Krishna consciousness, then you can't fall into Maya. It may be some practical service, it may be hearing, it may be chanting, it may be doing something. Always engaged. One of my ideals in this regard, Gopal Krishna Maharaj is always engaged in service. Tell me what, anyone, when you've seen Gopal Krishna Maharaj, like hanging out, like just sort of shooting the breeze or taking it easy. He's always busy, always doing something. You might agree with what he's doing, you might disagree, you might think he should do something else, you might not like, whatever, but always busy in Krishna's service. He doesn't have, I've just never seen him just like taking a break or watching a movie or, it's just service. It's so, he's really ideal in that regard, I think. So we're meant to be like that, go from service to service to service. When one service is done, the next service. Vegavati has a question or a comment or something. Vegavati.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Krishna.
And I'm not echoing or anything?
No, you're fine.
Okay. So this is back to the movies question, but it's not to go against what you said. I appreciate what you said, but and it happened a very long time ago. And I clearly remember praying to Krishna at this time in my life, please don't let me forget you, no matter what happens. So shortly after that, I was in some kind of Maya. I was still chanting, but anyway, I went to the movies, and it was a Peter Sellers movie. And there was a scene in the movie where a murder had taken place. So the camera's going into the room. The lady in Peter Sellers' companion sees the dead body and she goes, oh my God. But what everyone in the movie theater is seeing is on the wall in that room is this, the whole movie screen is a big picture of Krishna. One of those Peshwas from India. And she goes, she's seeing the dead body and she goes, oh my God. And Peter Sellers goes, yes, my God too. And I'm sitting there thinking, that wasn't an accident. And then later I moved into the temple in LA. I saw the little book Chant and Be Happy. And I read George Harrison telling that he and also Peter Sellers separately had been in planes that almost, looked like they might crash. And both of them in those situations had chanted Hare Krishna. So I just want to put that even if you do sometimes fall away, if you're sincere, Krishna will bring you back and remind you of who he is and what's important.
Yeah, I know our Bhavananda Prabhu was talking some time back and said, in his difficult days, he was going to some parties or something, and somebody there would be chanting Hare Krishna. It was like, oh.
Right. Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Let's see. It looks like we're going to have to hold the other questions. Well, let's take this last one from Shara. It seems that constant service to Krishna and his devotees That means less time to think of ourselves. Maybe this also keeps us from the me mind frame, and therefore also keeps us away from thinking we're the body. Yes, very good. Nice. We're thinking of Krishna, we won't be thinking me, and it's not even me. We're thinking of the me that's not me. I'm thinking of this body. But if I'm thinking of Krishna and I'm busy in Krishna's service, we forget. We forget about Maya. We don't have time. And those are the most blissful days. When you're so busy, when you're so, you go to bed exhausted because you're so engaged. Those are the wonderful days. Thank you. We'll stop here, and other questions can be held till next time around. And over to you, Madan Gopal Prabhu.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. And thank you for bringing out this point of keeping busy. And thank you, Shara, also for sharing that. It reminded me of this one exchange where one devotee was asking Srila Prabhupada, how is it that you're always able to always be absorbed in Krishna consciousness? And Prabhupada says, because I have no lust. And so the devotee's heart sank. And then Prabhupada said, well, he saw the devotee and he said, well, actually I have lust, but I have no time. So he gave the secret that when you have lust or don't have lust, it's ultimately irrelevant if you don't give it time. You just overflow, saturate your schedule with Krishna conscious activity, and that's a key. So thank you for bringing that out. Thank you. So yes, announcements of upcoming events. So of course, Vanaprastha Adventure continues on Thursday, 7 to 8. I'm just gonna have to.
There's an adventure.
That's an adventure. That's right. And the link is available on Maharaj's website, jswami.info, under the About section over there. And you can find the Vanaprastha Adventure link and our regular Zoom channel here. We've been announcing this personal finance planning for devotees by His Grace Shridhari Gopal Prabhu. So please feel free to join that. You can sign up. Quite a few devotees already signed up. 30 plus devotees have signed up for this, and it's pretty popular. There's no cost for it, but it's 4 Sundays, and if you commit to it, you'll get something out of it for sure. Practical ways to have a stable retirement life financially, and so you can focus on your Krishna consciousness. Then a very exciting Pathways to Perfection series coming up, starting not this Saturday, but the following one. Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 10:30, and it's Shravana Kirtanam, etc. And we get some fantastic speakers. And the overview, the kickoff will be by His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. So 1.5 hours next Saturday. This is Eastern Time. Sponsored by, of course, hosted at Bhakti Center and co-hosted by all our regional temples in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania areas. So please make a note of this. It's tinyurl.com, P2 Perfection. That's Pathways to Perfection. And you can register there and you'll get the Zoom link for it. So be sure to join that. And our Zoom channel continues. So no class tomorrow, but on Sunday evening we have the benchmark of pure love of Godhead. That's the topic by His Grace Gauranga Prabhu. So please feel free to join for that. I think you'll enjoy. These all our speakers are very popular now on the Zoom channel, and feel free to share with others so they can also take part in this flow of nectar. So thank you all very much, and thank you, Maharaj, once again, and thank you, dear devotees, for participating. You can unmute yourself if you like, and we can do a quick Haribol to Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Sadhar Pranam.
Very much.
Maharaj, thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj.
So much.
Hey,
Thank you, Maharaj.
Ki Jai.
Bring the Bhagavatam to life.